saying that because it reminds everybody that we're at the end of Q3. And no matter the topic right now, I think anybody that can start to use HubSpot or any of the tooling available to you, it's going to help you through the end of the year. So today we're talking about AI skills, kind of relevant right now in the inbound ecosystem. How you doing today, Nico?
Doing well, sir. Doing amazingly well. As always, there's some great news that came out this past week, and been playing around with my new upgraded GPT voice. So very, very happy.
Yeah, let's. I know we got a demo to get to, but is there a quick and dirty of what that means?
Okay, so what it means is essentially that we had GPT voice already, but it was conversational, but it was a little slow in terms of lag, and the, let's say, tone of voice and things of that nature weren't quite there yet. So now it's a little bit more advanced. It's not quite listening to you, but it still is like responding much faster. Has a little bit of tone to it. So when it responds, even though it's still TTS and so it's still text to speech and speech to text, back and forth, right? So it doesn't necessarily, again, hear, and it doesn't necessarily evoke, but it understands that when particular words are put together, that there is an emotional context there. So it can understand your emotional state given like what you say. In other words, if it responds to you and you respond sarcastically, it will actually understand the context of what you said compared to what it said, and then put it together that, hey, you're being sarcastic.
Okay, so response is like, bitch, please. Right around the corner.
Yep.
Okay,
for sure.
That's gonna be fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And we'll contextualize that throughout the episode, I'm sure. But I know you've been chomping at the bit to get this demo out into the world, and yes, I'm excited to share it. So no pressure, but high expectations here, man. It's been like 3 weeks of buildup at this point.
I know.
So let's get her done.
Okay. I apologize. I feel so bad for people because we did try to do this during inbound and just could not get it working, but now I got it working. So I'm way more than happy to demo this for you guys. All right. So let's go ahead, and we're going to start essentially by looking at the base, right? So we've got your custom GPT section. From there, obviously, you're going to go to create. And I'm not sure if free versions of GPT can create yet. I think you can only use custom GPTs. So got to get that paid. Click on create. And so that's just going to open up a blank canvas for us to hopefully. There we go. That would be the luck that I'm ready, but the program shuts down. Okay, so we're going to create and configure our bot. Right now, I don't know, it depends, right? Let's go to, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Best Buy. And let me just check real quick how many menus and submenus we have. Quite a few. Oh, I don't know, Chris. Maybe something a little bit smaller, but also in depth. Who can I think of right off the bat? You know what? Here we go. This is gonna be weird, but let's just do it anyway. I haven't done a restaurant before, so we're gonna do Denny's. Okay, Denny's has plenty of stuff. It has plenty of menu items to go through. It's got locations, it's got rewards, about us, dinner dip. So we'll see what's going on, and especially with the menu, we should be able to pick up all of these items as well. Don't know that we'll get the details behind it, but we'll see. Okay, so based on the site that we're picking up and based on our custom GPT, what we're going to do is we're literally going to yank all the URLs off of a site, and we're going to use that to pull the data, and then we're going to use that data to create custom instructions, and then we're going to put all of that back into the custom GPT and use that as the basis for it. And then we'll get into why you would want to do this. So let's start with, you know what? We'll do XRF. Okay, so here's XRF. And so we're going to use a plugin for Chrome called Link Grabber, right? And you can just go to the Chrome store and pick that up. It looks exactly like this. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for the chat peeps somewhere. I can't actually see the chat. There we go. It's like a separate function. Okay, so grab the Link Grabber, install that into your Chrome. You'll have that as a plugin to have up at the top, and I would just keep it, quick access, because you're going to need to anyway. And so once you click that, it will pull every URL from the site, and it's not just like every URL that you can see here. It's everything that's within these menus, because all of these menu items are all within the HTML of the page. So it does not matter that it's like buried super deep. It's still going to be able to just go all the way in and pull that URL string out anyway. All right, so now we've got all of our URLs. So we're going to go ahead and take this, and usually I go all the way up to the privacy policy, terms of service, like the legal stuff. So grab everything before legal, and we'll go all the way up back to the main URL, just up to the base. Okay, we'll go ahead and copy this. And then I will, I don't need to give you a link to this stuff, but because it's easy enough, I think. So what we're going to do is we're just going to paste the URLs in here, and then we're going to create them as sort of comma-separated values that we're going to use in a script later on. So for right now, we're just going to say equals. We're going to start with equals, and we're going to put a apostrophe in there. And then we're going to say, and the cell value. Oops. Let's see. And hopefully I'm writing this proper. And put another apostrophe afterwards, and then a comma. No, of course it's not. Okay. Is it written that way? I write, what's crazy is I write this all the time. Should I start somewhere? No, I didn't. It's easy enough to walk backwards, I think. I'm just doing this as opposed to just looking up the formula, because I could look it up. I don't know Excel that well, so I have no problem admitting that.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great example, because like this is why
you can see how many times I've been doing this.
There's always improvements to be made right now. Like, sure, maybe somebody, like this is why all the stuff is not push button yet, right? Like there is a way to make it significantly better with like 10 minutes of work, right? And this is the kind of stuff where you probably knew it was involved in the process before, but it's something that, took hours maybe, and that's why you never got to it.
Right.
But when we talk about giving AI the context it needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I wanted you to say like, hey, like help me build a GTM strategy for this business, Nico. Like if we had infinite time, we would go through all the different products and who they were for and what their costs were and all the information that exists on all these pages. Right? We don't have time for that. So we don't get to it. We make a bunch of assumptions. We have these interviews that last an hour, right? And we try to glean as much as we can, right? And then we say like, oh, okay, we'll just figure it out. Like once we get out in front of people, they'll give us feedback. We'll continue to refine. Like the ability to give way more context now is just like, if you could do that, why wouldn't you?
Right.
I
can't. Let me see. I'm sorry. I'm just looking for a formula that I need to use. Oh, I really do. Like,
I think one recommendation out of the gate is probably not doing this live on a LinkedIn stream, as that will certainly add some complexity in some way.
yeah, I
Where it
know. I
finds a
know.
way.
Look, I was ready, okay, and the sheet was actually set up and everything was ready to go. So I don't want to hear it. Okay. This happens literally every time I try to do a demo. This is how terrible my luck is. I seriously, oh my gosh.
Oh, that's why it's easier for
Using
them,
GPTs,
like, because they're not going to be doing it on a live show where
right.
inevitably something will try to go wrong.
Oh my God. And it's that simple too. This is what's so terrible about it. Okay. That's it. Okay. So back to this. We're going to take everything from above terms of service all the way to the main URL. I'm going to go ahead and copy, pretend like I never had an issue before with the formula. Go ahead and paste it here. And we're going to go ahead and take our formula, apply it, and save a piece of it over here, just in case. And then we're going to paste in place the values only. Okay, so now we have all the values of that. And the reason we're doing it in this way, and so that it has these marks front and back and all that, let me make sure, yep, okay. That's supposed to have, oh, it didn't do one thing. Of course. And give me one of those. Cool. Perfect. All right. Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I want that comma after it because they're going to be comma separated values when they go into the script. So we're going to go ahead and copy and then paste values only. Now that we have the values only, we're going to go ahead and copy those. And then what I'm going to do is open up a Python script that I will somehow get to you guys. I'm not entirely sure because I know that you can't just like paste script everywhere. So I'll upload this to a GitHub and then I'll give you guys the link to that. So in between, we're going to go ahead and paste all those values in. Like I said, if you have it set up properly, so you have the apostrophes prior to the, and then the comma afterward, helps you to basically just make it so that it's set to use right away. These are all, they have to be comma separated values anyway. So you might as well just use that formula and do it really quick. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and just run the script. You'll see the debug console here. And what's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and dump all of that data into a file folder that I've got that I would show you, but it has a lot of other file stuff in it right now.
It's been interesting to watch you work on this stuff because so much of what you're doing, especially like and what was required for you to have any chance of, you know, Hub Helper Harry, like being up to date and like really getting all of the information, and is just the kind of formatting and, you know, work that you do to put it in the I guess smallest of formats and most legible of formats for the robots that need to, you know, consume it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you want to know what it is the script does and why it is that I'm using it, what it's doing is it's taking all the information off of XRF site, but it's doing it in a structured method where it's reading from H1 tags down to P before it goes to the next H tag. So if there's something that's like titled with paragraph under it, then it's going to grab those two things together before moving on to the next thing. And the reason you do that is exactly what Chris mentioned. It makes it easier for the model to understand the organization and the order of things, how they're supposed to be. So then what we end up doing is we take all of that data, and rather than just like shoving it in the model and then trying to write the instructions and hoping that it's going to hit the mark, you'll see that we're going to take this data, we're going to put it into a different GPT, and we're actually going to have that GPT draw up the instructions that we're going to need for the custom model.
Love it.
So I'm just waiting for this to show a little blue that it's completed.
It's just like asking somebody that you're working with, like, how would you like me to communicate with you? Like,
Yeah.
what is your communication style, right?
Yeah.
Like asking asking the GPTs to make the custom instructions is like such a underrated thing, I think, that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. Like,
no, and I gotta say, when we were at Inbound, there was only 2 speakers that I heard the entire, in 3 days. I heard 2 speakers for, you know, if you put it together, a total of 2 minutes, who talked to the audiences about, hey, when it comes to prompting, try not to be so overtly concerned with it. You can always ask the model to create the prompt for you, and then also to help you like advance the prompt and to make it better than the previous version was.
yep.
Okay, let me just double check that this isn't. Nope, not yet. As you can see, I didn't want to leave it up there too long, but I don't really care. I am updating as often as I can, right? This is the developer doc from HubSpot, so I'm getting in there as much as I can, as often as I can. I know that it's, the only reason I know it's not finished is because you can see the piece up here. Honestly, you can basically blame Chris for this, because if XRF wasn't so massive with so many links and so many menus and so many URLs everywhere, then I wouldn't have to pull so much data. But
Right.
it makes it worthwhile, right? The more information that is found on the site, the more, obviously, the more data you're going to be able to shove into the GPT. So outside of it doing this in a hierarchical order, on top of which it takes that and shoves it into a JSON file. And JSON is the easiest method for these models to read any sort of data. So if you're doing data, or if you're uploading data for it to have as a knowledge base, or if you're doing it as custom instructions, from what I have messed around with and played around with, because I've also used custom instructions that were UTF-8 formatted, and I thought that that was really great, which is where you essentially use hash as like the leading marker, and then you use asterisks as like the next marker, and then slashes or dashes as the third, and then slashes as fourth. And it again helps you to create that hierarchy. So you just put the character in front of the statement in order to, you know, discern which is which. But again, it was all right. And then when I started comparing that to my assistants in the playground, the assistants in the playground only accept JSON instructions. And so I started seeing that Harry in the playground was actually performing better than Harry live. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So maybe I should just tweak Harry's instructions. And I had to work at that for a bit. I'm really, I love, there's a new feature. Okay, we just finished. There is a new feature, and just so you guys understand how big this is. So this is the hierarchy-based dump of XRF's website. And so we could just leave this as is, but you could see that there's a ton of garbage in here too, right? And that's gonna happen. It's gonna pull stuff that, like, you know, you're not necessarily gonna want in there. So what you can do is you can go through and just look for find and replace. And the easiest way typically is to find the end of a segment. And then you can see usually there's going to be some stuff that's going to repeat pretty much on every page. There you go. So you've got like 88 instances of this, right? So what you want to do and make sure, right, there's no comma trailing here. So you're going to select and make sure you grab the trailing comma there. We'll paste this in. And now we can just go ahead and replace all of that. And we start shaving down the file size. So that's the purpose of doing this. That it's just your file sizes. I think if you approach, I want to say the maximum is like 10 megabytes, which sounds so tiny, doesn't it? Like we're using drives that are like, you know, gigabytes and stuff, or terabytes, right? Like I have a 2 terabyte drive and we have to do something that's megabytes. That's insane. But if you think about how much information, okay, so it's megabytes, right? All of this information, 1.2 megabytes. Okay, so you really have to think about structure. You really have to think about compression. You really have to think about efficiency, right, in terms of what it is you're doing. So let's just take this as is. I'm not going to do any more editing. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on that. We'll come back over to our custom GPT.
We do have a question.
Fire away.
From Zachary Paulette.
Got it.
Would it make sense? Is it possible to create an agent that does these steps? Or maybe doing this manually ensures you're not building on faulty data?
Yes, absolutely. You could definitely build an agent to do this. That would be so. That's a perfect. I'm so glad you asked that question, because for anybody who's wondering, like, what is the purpose and what is the difference between agents and what we're using now? What I'm doing is the difference. The fact that I have to go do these things, that I have to go pull the URLs, that I have to go do this stuff in Python, that I have to go do this stuff in Sheets. The agent can do that for me. I have a Sheets agent. I have a Python agent. I have a web agent. I have a GPT agent. And I string them all together and then give the GPT agent the command. And it goes and hires all, like when you see agent AI and you see that it's hire this agent, that's what your main agent is doing. It's basically looking at all the other ones on the back end and saying, like, I'm going to hire you and you and you and you. And the 5 of us are going to work together to pull off this goal that the user gave us. That stuff, like I said, this whole process within 6 months gets reduced to 1 sentence.
Yeah.
So talk about, I'm doing this in, like, okay, if demo was ready, everything was working perfectly. Talk about doing this in 10 minutes. 6 months from now, you do this in 5 seconds. How ridiculous is
matters,
that, right?
Right. That's huge.
My gosh. Okay. So we've got, I'm using a bot that I've already been using to build instructions. You can use a custom GPT that is built for instructions. You can use a lot of different stuff. It really doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that content file. Let me go ahead and grab that. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to say, can you please create another set of instructions for this data? And we'll wait until it fully loads. Okay, so that's also another issue, right? For like file sizes, if you upload too much just for an ask, it could be too much and it might crap out. If you upload too much, didn't give it enough fine-tuned instruction. Another JSON-based set of instructions. Because yeah, of course it can do what you want. Did you give it the right thing that you wanted it to be? No, I didn't. So now I'm getting what I wanted because I asked it for the thing that I actually wanted, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what it's doing is it's loading it up with tasks. What I want it to do is, can you please organize instructions into a form of, all of seniority. And let's see.
I think, like, as you're highlighting things that were making it challenging to manage the XRF data, it's like, so that's a website built, it's an e-commerce site based on Shopify, right? So we're relying on Shopify to just build stuff out based on which products you put in the system, right? And all of these things, like so much of our digital infrastructure has been built for a world where we're trying to please the Google algorithm, right? Yep. And when you mention we have all these pages, we have all this junk, right? How much have we put in there to try and help the robots read the stuff? And it doesn't matter. Like sometimes like the organization matters, but then you just got to make sure there's keywords in the titles and in various places. And we just manufacture like things specifically for this purpose.
Right.
Now, trying to use that infrastructure to support AI, it's completely different, right? And if you leave all that in and then train the AI, like we're going backwards if we want it to behave like the Google algorithm. Right. So of course, like this kind of stuff. And then it comes back to like, understand the tools and platforms when you're building out your presence online, like understanding them, having somebody in your org, understanding them to that level and understanding the difference between this website platform or this website platform, how the more and more you're not seeing them introduce AI into their functionality, you got to start asking questions about like, should I be investing in this tool?
Yep.
Like, where are they at? Like, start asking them, like, are you paying attention to this? Are you doing anything to support AI life? Right? If not,
Right.
you gotta at least consider some options at that point.
Before it just comes and hits you over the head. I mean,
right. Because those are, I feel like we've been saying this for a while, and it's probably like too related to digital transformation. But we are hearing, like, it happens in SaaS more than anywhere else, but the days of, like, there's only so much space. And if the robots get really, really good at this stuff, the SaaS companies and the vendors and the products that fall behind are the ones that are going to be here on Friday, gone on Monday.
Yep.
Right. And if you have any of your infrastructure related to that, you're going to be in a bad spot.
Yep. I was just talking to Mark Lerner about that yesterday, and not yesterday, the day before, like earlier this week. And he was asking me about that. And he's like, what do you think about like the future of like what happens? And I was like, well, especially for partners, I can say this much. If you are a company that is built on top of the platform, so you need the platform in order for your tool to be useful, find something else. Whatever your tool does, it gathers data, right? Data is the new gold and API is the new currency. So whatever you have that you're running as third party is collecting data. That data collection can yield different patterns, can yield different outcomes. So what you need to do is take that data, launch that through another language model, and start using that to leverage information to give out to customers via some API, via licensing, however you want to do it. But your tool is not going to be useful in as much anymore. It's the data that your tool garners that's going to be useful, right?
Yeah.
So real quick, all I did was go to the site, and you saw just screenshotted the logo, downloaded that, bring that in as the logo, make it real easy. So we're going to call this XRF GPT. And this is going to be a clone of XRF via the website. And so for the instructions, now we just come back to what we've already created. We copy that, and we just go ahead and paste it here. And now we've got all of our instructions done. So yes, for any sort of contact inquiries, right, it's going to go to the support page, pick up the phone number and information there to give it to somebody. But we've also given it in a like sort of hierarchy in terms of like tasks that it should be doing first and last. I'm just going through it real fast. I'm not saying that that's really good. I would go back and edit it a little bit. Or again, we're talking about like, hey, what about prompting? Okay, so we've got these instructions. Could you make these any better? Which is to say, can you make them more effective?
And that's where, like, talk to me about the difference between just having typed it out and saying like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences versus having some of the punctuation, that we're seeing.
Okay, so with what we're seeing, you've got your instructions overall, and then you have the task that's within the instructions. And the hierarchy is helping it understand, okay, this task is more important than this one, which is more important than this on the way down the line. And so we want it to be that way so that we first understand the query. Second, we understand how to go find the information. Third, we understand how to get the information that we want. Fourth, we understand how to take that information and put it into a way that the user is going to understand it based on the query. Want to make sure that the information that we're pulling is actually relevant to the query, and that we respond to the user with clear and precise language, right? And then, of course, the handling support questions. And so inside of that, right, we've got task, which is what this is. And then we've got inside of these quotation marks, we've got what the task is. And then inside of the actual detail of the task, we have these asterisks, which mean that this statement is the lead statement for this information. And the lead statement, you can tell the difference between the two also by using colon separation as a delimiter, right?
Yeah.
So there is like some programming that goes into this stuff, but it's on a pretty basic level, and it's in such a way that, like, again, you could just ask the model to carry it for you. There's no real reason for you to have to dig through and try to understand, and I gotta go learn Python. Like, no, you don't. You just ask it to do it. And then if you come up with an error, you copy the error, paste it into GPT, and I got this error. How do we fix it? And it'll fix the code for you. Like, that's, work with it as an assistant. So let's take these updated instructions. Not that they're amazingly better, but perhaps they are. And we'll go ahead and close that up. Now we're going to go ahead and upload the data file. Can I just drag and drop? No, I wish I could. Okay. Upload the data file. It's going to be over in Visual Studio in my scraper. It's going to be that. I think I did it fast enough. Okay. And then we're also going to turn on code interpreter and data analysis, because that's going to allow us down the road to be able to attach or upload files of, data that maybe we want to query against the model. So we're going to wait, let it load this hierarchical data, and hopefully that shouldn't take too much longer. I think it might actually be loaded, but we're just not seeing the progress bar. So I'm going to go ahead and create. Oh, before I do, the last most important instruction. Oh, and it's not showing because of actions. Okay, I've got to create it first, and then hopefully we'll come back and we'll see it. So we'll go with anyone with a link so that it's not public, but you can share it with people. Okay, so it's done. We've got our GPT. What I want to do is I want to go back to edit. It's not there. Uh-oh. Did they remove this? Oh, that's terrible if they did.
What are we looking
Okay,
for?
I don't know what to tell you, folks. There used to be another option right under actions that was like the last option for creating your GPT. And that last option, you were able to check the box, and the box said, don't share any of the data as training data. So I don't know.
Is that in the upper right?
I don't know if it's a glitch.
Maybe. No.
I love this. So now I have
Duplicate,
yeah. So now I have a testing Harry that I can like do all sorts of stuff to.
Nice.
Failed to upload. Okay, please ensure. It really shouldn't have. File contents. Okay, let's try it again.
Could it be that it's like they just removed that option and none of them will train? Like,
I think maybe it's only when the data file is in there, because otherwise you'd just be asking it questions technically.
Right. That would make sense.
Okay, there we go. Yep. Okay. It's only when you have. I honestly did not know that. Okay, so last and most importantly, do not use conversation data in the GPT to improve your model, to improve OpenAI's models. So make sure you uncheck that, and then go ahead and update. Please don't forget this step. Unless what you're building is like, for fun or something like that.
Unless you want to do some guerrilla marketing.
Who doesn't? All right, so let's go play with the XRF GPT. And so, all right, what's the purpose? What's the use? Why did we build this? What is it good for? Let's see, what we could say is something like, I don't know. Okay, based on where we are in streaming and market space, and based on the website content, what are some markets that are untapped that we should get into? So it's going to look at, again, it's going to look at all the site data, and then it's going to come back and give us this opinion, right, on like, here's where you are at based on what you have all over your site. And then here's where like maybe you haven't looked at yet based on stuff that you have, and then balanced against the industry, right? And then I have Chris here to verify whether or not any of this is useful and or leverageable.
Definitely had conversations resulting in these results for this exact question. So
wow, nice. So we hit the nail on the head right out the gate.
Right. And this is where, like, we keep talking about this a lot. Like, does this replace Chris? Right? No. Now Chris doesn't have to have that 60-minute conversation to get to this point. And we can have a different 60-minute conversation about what we do with this information. And it's just like that's, if we're talking about building blocks as far as time savings and value and kind of levels of insight, like getting us to getting past like some of these knockdown, drag out conversations where all these human,
where there's guesstimation,
behavioral, like communication, we've evolved it, right? It's hard not to take things, personally when nobody means anything by it. It's hard not to be protective of information and data. Like all these things that get in the way of having constructive conversations, and the conversations were like, all right, we know we're going into this meeting. Everybody's aligned. Should be like bang, 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 done. And then it's 60 minutes. We have no idea what happened. Everybody's pissed off. And we didn't get anything done. Right. This removes that. Right. And when it does, now you have very constructive conversations that are already past that. And we're having insights upon insights. And then it's not like we're done with the GPT. We can feed it back. Since this is a company GPT, right? I've used one recently. I created one that's like, hey, you're going to be, the business growth. You're a top, you're a, high quality business growth coach consultant. And every time we talk, that's your role. And here's all the, the vision docs, this is where when you have stuff already, that you put so much work in, all the stuff that you need for EOS or any kind of operating system where you're documenting everything, quality management systems, just getting it in there. You did all that work already. Now, whether it's updating those documents or it's where are the gaps or what's the strategy, right? You start to build this foundation of knowledge, and instead of rehashing, when we don't have this mechanism, we end up rehashing the same conversations every time because we have to remind ourselves of these caveats and these contexts and these results from the past and just these feelings, right? Yeah. And now we can remove all the other stuff and now actually have constructive feelings and move through that stuff in a much more successful way, just hands down. And who wouldn't want that, right? The only people that I've witnessed that don't like that are the ones who like to live in the gray, right? They love to negotiate.
Because that makes them feel like, they're important, right? That it's it always reminds me, I hate to use this. I like using the analogy because it's so funny and visual, but it always reminds me of Office Space. And I forget the character's name, but he's the guy that, with the glasses, and he sits in with the two other guys who are, the two Bobs. Yeah. And they're like, so what would you say? Yeah. What would you say it is you do in a typical day? Well, I take the paperwork from the customers and I give it to the engineers. I was like, well, do you physically do this? Well, no, my staff does it, but it still gets done. So you don't actually do any of it. What is it that you do here? Right. It's that whole thing of hey, if you don't have purpose and your only purpose is to sit in meetings and eat up time by offering opinion that may or may not be relevant, then maybe it's, look, just because something, and I'm just being honest here, just because there's something that may take your job, the only reason you should worry about that is if you let your job define who you are as a person. Otherwise, you should be saying, Good, take my job because I wanted to be a baker anyway. Good, take my job because I wanted to go work construction. Right? Like, you should be like, and I get it. The fear is really, yeah, but if my job gets taken, then how am I supposed to pay my bills? Okay, look, it's not going to happen necessarily like that. Some seriously evil corporations will definitely kick people out and just be like, yeah, good riddance, we'll replace them with robots. But for the most part, if you're willing to do the job and you want to use these tools to enable you, you're going to still have purpose. You're going to still have meaning. You're going to still be of use. It's only if you're the type of people that we're talking about that don't really contribute, that don't really add anything to the conversation, that aren't actually doing any heavy lifting in the office. Yeah, you might want to start looking elsewhere.
Yeah. And or just like, let's say that guy he was adding value because the engineers aren't good at talking to customers. But he's clearly not good at communicating that to these guys that are looking to cut staff. Help engineers and customers talk to each other via AI tools, like creating AI tools, creating other things. It's not you anymore. You don't scale, and you aren't built to show up 24/7 all day, every day. Right. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing things that something else that can show up 24/7, 365 can do, you've got to find a different mode right now. And like the challenging thing is, and this is like, again, like so hard to talk about. It makes it fun though, right? Talking about AI. Yeah, it does. Like there's so many philosophical and societal things that are going to have to be dealt with in very short order. Are like for this community, and again, like when it comes to family first and like human beings helping human beings, like your job can't be everything, and there has been a space to just go get paid, right? Yeah. And that was an acceptable part of life, that we go 8 to 5, we go and we cash checks, but that's not everything. Like if you're in a situation where that it's not going to be okay, like like those are the jobs that will go away first. They already are going away. And because you were only adding to productivity and profitability because whatever your output was worth it, right? We didn't need meaningful human inputs to get that output. We just needed somebody who could come in and do the thing. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that they get replaced. And like maybe you have something else you can go to, but that income piece, like this, and lots of people have been talking about it for a while now, right? There are some things that we're going to have to figure out where, again, this is not far out for me. This is like figuring out human value, like and related to like moms that stay at home and raise kids, mm-hmm. right? Like there's a lot of value there, and we've had a tough time like quantifying it when all the focus is on GDP.
Right. And that's I mean, like nail on the head, right? And that was probably the number one discussion that I was having last week with people was what's coming next. The number 2 discussion was how do I leverage? And the third discussion, which I found to be the most important of the 3, was what's going to happen? Like what's going to happen with my job? What's going to happen monetarily? Like, you know, what's coming next was more about like, oh, what are the new models? What's the new tech? Like what's happening? With jobs, you know, me and Chris talked about it too, that it's a matter of just switching them. Like we're talking about how this technology gives you more time back in your day. And when you have more time back in your day, you do what? You're able to add additional context. You're able to go back and bolster. You're able to add the time where it matters. And when you spend time doing things, right? What is it we always say? Anything that needs to get done right doesn't get done quickly, takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day type stuff, right? So we add meaning With all of that time and all that effort, we add meaning to stuff. Okay, so how does that translate? Well, if all we're doing is adding meaning because of this stuff being able to take the minutia away, that means that the meaning itself is a contribution to what we do as a society. So we make this huge shift from, like you said, going from production, which is all about GDP and how much are you producing per hour and all this other stuff, to contribution, where it's how much are you contributing to society on an hourly basis, right? So yeah, a stay-at-home mom contributes a hell of a lot by raising yet another potentially contributing member of society, right? That's a high-paying job now, okay? As it should be, right? If you are willing to take the years out of your life to then raise a child so that they can be a productive member of society, yes, right? And now we're talking about not productive member anymore. You don't have to slave yourself through school and everything. Not saying you won't have to go to school. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to like put yourself into debt for it. Now it's just a matter of what can you contribute, right? Now you don't have to be afraid of being an artist. You don't have to be afraid of being a musician and being a starving artist, starving musician, busking on the streets or whatever it is. You're contributing anyway, flat out. If you're putting music out there, you're putting music out there. If you wrote a book and you put it out there, you're putting education out there, right? Like, your contribution becomes what's most important, as it should be, right? Doctors get paid more. People who clean up streets get paid more. People who clean hotels get paid more, right? They ought to. And people who are entertainers get paid less. Why? Because it's entertainment. It's an easy-ass job. I don't give a damn what you say. I get it. Mad respect to Daniel Day-Lewis and all the other, actors that are hardcore like that, method acting. But let's be real, right? Even my boy Tom Cruise doesn't need to get paid $40 million for a movie. I'm sure he'll do just fine with 2, right? Like, the lifestyles have to change and things have to shift around, and they're going to, and it's evolution, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to take time, but it's worth it. The light on the other side of this tunnel is some of the greatest light humanity will ever have seen. This transition will be absolutely worthwhile. So it's scary, a lot of stuff coming, a lot of big change, a lot of things that are just not going to be. There's plenty of stuff that is literally going to shatter what we knew before, right? So there's going to be foundational things that we thought were like really grounding foundational parts of humanity that are going to get shattered, right? So like, this is it's literally the tip of the iceberg. I was just looking and peeking at a video this morning that was talking about the fact of like where we are at in that exponential curve, and like just how close. I'll say it. I'll put this much out there. Altman just said 2 days ago, that we are thousands of days away from superintelligence. Now, take that however you will. It's thousands. He didn't say tens of thousands, though. So it's from 1,000 to 10,000. And maybe it's like 15 or 20. But days, which once you do the conversion, man, we're talking like a decade. We're not talking a very long amount of time, right? So, 3,000 days or whatever, you're talking about what, like 11 to 12 years? So not a long amount of time.
Yeah.
It just isn't, right? Like, when people talk to me about like things happening soon, or, oh, it's going to take a while. Soon to me means a month, and a while to me means 6 months. That's how I've just reconfigured time in my head, because it just is. Like, there's just new stuff. Somebody said like, oh, there's new stuff every month, every week. If you are paying attention, there is groundbreaking new stuff every single week. It may not be in end user hands yet, but it's happening. All right. The fact that it's happening is insane. And the whole 3 Mile Island thing, I just wanted to bury that real quick. They are not rebuilding the old reactor that broke. Okay. There is a perfectly good reactor that's on that island that was fully operational, and they only shut it down because it wasn't making money. So they're going to turn that back on. They've got plenty of people to work on it, right? This was basically the alternative to them building their own reactor, right? So it's at least it's a little, I'm guessing, a little bit cheaper to turn one back on. And so that's the story there. It's not they're not going to try, people are afraid of nuclear power. I don't understand why. The last nuclear power plant that went under, it took an earthquake. Okay. Fukushima was an earthquake. So let's just take it easy on like nuclear power plants, going bad and exploding and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's way different now. The nuclear waste, they actually reuse nuclear waste now as additional fuel. Like the whole thing is very different, the whole process. That's all I'm saying.
And I love getting into these because what we mean by AI skills, or what I'm explaining now by justifying what we just talked about, it's just like human skills, right? Like there is soft skills and there are hard skills.
Mm-hmm.
And this can't, if you just focus on hard skills, like how can I do these tasks, like without the understanding of the relational ideas of what's about to happen and what could possibly happen, like you've got to be prepared for not knowing, like get comfortable with uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm thankful that I've been in the HubSpot ecosystem for the last year, where there's literally product updates every single day. Things are changing every single day. This whole, like, maybe at first, I was like, oh, it'd be cool if they weren't every day. Then maybe I could keep up. But then very quickly you're like, okay, that's a reality that doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
Right. Like,
yep.
And I'm happy to have learned that from this ecosystem. A lot of people are still having trouble, but there's no reason, like, when you understand the pace that we're moving, we're not going back unless, like, the doomsday happens, right? And we lose all of the electronics, and which I'm not saying that's not going to happen either, right?
Right.
Humans can definitely make some shit happen, but like if we're assuming positive intent and universal forces at play, right? Like, we're doing a lot of good here, and when we can get people out of check caching mode and assigning real value to the real valuable things, of course that's a better place. Why wouldn't we all just race towards that place?
Right. Yeah. We'll see, man. We'll see if humanity has never, so far as I know, humanity has never been offered Eden. So we will see if we're ready to accept it. I mean, a lot of these guys, if you listen to Sam Altman, you listen to Dario Amodei, Dario and his sister, it's fun. I listened to an interview that they did not too long ago, and he said the greatest thing I've ever heard, which was all I've ever wanted to do is to, like, solve problems, is to, like, fix the world. When I was a kid, I just wanted to save the world. Right, him and his sister, and that was their end, their be all end all, and that's kind of what they're doing with Claude. If you look at the difference between Claude and GPT, it's not so much the, like, power and or like the model itself. Anthropic versus OpenAI really does represent Microsoft Apple. Okay, like, and you can consider Anthropic to be Apple, you can consider OpenAI to be Microsoft. Oddly enough, they're working together. And the only thing that's strange about Anthropic is that it's also taking some Microsoft money, some Google money, it's taking some Amazon money. But
it's the definition of let's all get better together.
That's I would also agree with that. And it's the fact that they are doing it ethically, right? They're doing it responsibly. They don't want to rush ahead just to have something. Whereas Sam is kind of just, pedal to the metal, man. He wants to get it at any cost, almost.
Yeah. So bringing it back, another way to explain the value is, let's go through this output of this GPT.
Yep.
That just happened while we were talking about something else that was completely different. Right?
Yeah. So what we did is we looked at, initially, we looked at industry market space, and what we wanted to see is like untapped resources. So we went through that. Chris echoed definitely the resources they're looking to. So it's like, all right, based on that, and we want to launch a new product, and we want to launch it for this medical pharmaceutical application. What would be a really good, effective, and attractive go-to-market strategy? So now we've got what the go-to-market strategy is going to be, broken down into its segments, into what it is you're going to have to do, as well as what the actual action for that part of the strategy is.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me just highlight the GTM action right there. Partner with regulatory consultants or experts to fast track certification. Like that. Sometimes.
Right? Because otherwise you're sitting there like, oh, well, we put the cert in. We'll just wait.
Yeah.
They say it's going to take a little bit.
Yeah. And like what you will do, you build the product, right? And you're so like, it's just solving for the problem so well, right? And just these industry constraints that you like subconsciously don't want to deal with because it's hard. You just don't take them into consideration. And then it takes you 2 years to get to the market because you didn't take that part into account. And now you've got 5 other competitors right there with you. Yep. Right. So that kind of insight, again, we're taking it all of the ways that we can personally like bias things like this. You no longer have that learning curve of like, where are our biases? Like all these things, man, this is good stuff.
So then we've got your targeted market segmentation, strategic partnerships that you should form, differentiation and the value prop that goes behind it, the educational marketing and thought leadership, right? So that happens a lot where you're introducing a new product and you have to educate the market on how to do that, right? So here's a way of not only doing the educational marketing, but okay, let's take somebody that probably uses the product or a couple people that use the product and let's turn them into thought leaders. Let's not turn them into, influencers, right? Like, even though influencer and thought leader may be the same thing to other people, it's not. I could tell you as somewhat, I like as a budding, very tiny little thought leader, realistically, what goes through my head all the time is, how do I get my message out there? That's it. Like, I just want to educate people on what it is that I do, and I want to educate them about GPT. How do I do this? That's all I care about as a thought leader. So if you're finding people like that and you're empowering them by saying, hey, I noticed that you do this stuff. It happens to me often. I get people that message me and say like, hey, I've got this AI application. Would you like to take a look at it? That's how you go about it. You go find people who are already talking about your industry. They're already talking about similar products. And you make the offer and say, hey, look, here's a product. Here's some guides. Here's some stuff that we're doing. What do you think about it? You just get their opinion. You don't even say, I would love for you to talk about it. I would love for you to be on a podcast. Nothing. Just, what do you think about it? And if they give you a good, honest opinion that you like, then take it another step, keep going. But you're developing a meaningful relationship, right? You're not trying to pitch. I've got so many people that they hit my inbox and they're like, oh, check this out. And hopefully New Breed's open to that. And maybe we could start up a partnership. You've done 3 things. You've introduced yourself. You've introduced a product. You've introduced the fact that you want me to pitch your product. And you've introduced the fact that you're not even interested in me. You're interested in the company I work for. Right. So, and that's in one shot, right? If you'd have broken that up. Yeah.
The inbox has been rough the week after inbound.
Oh my God, it's terrible. Jesus. Vendors, please stop. Please stop. Yeah. I talked to you already. I didn't want to, if I wanted to further the conversation, I'll reach out to you. You don't have to remind me. If you have to remind me about your product or service, you didn't do a good job the first go around.
Right. And it's such a no-win. Either I talk to you and you should know me and you're giving me an email that clearly does not represent that, or I did not talk to you and you're telling me that we did talk and that you did meet me and we didn't. So literally the cold pitch after is just stop, just stop.
It's embarrassing. It's cringe.
It's so cringe.
I just see the subject lines and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to open that.
It's like literally. And I told you while I was there, I was like, man, I was going to make a better effort to visit all the vendor booths, and I didn't go to a single one, right? And then my inbox is just overloaded.
That's horrific.
Suggesting that I went to every damn booth on the floor. Like, man.
So that's the thing, right? Is that because you registered for inbound,
right?
Your information got passed off to them, right? And like, that's ridiculous. You should not do that. If you didn't talk to somebody, you don't have their information, you don't have a card. The whole point of bumping those things together was that if you like, there are so many people, vendors that I bump tags with. There's only one who actually contacted me. All the other vendors who have contacted me, I don't have them on my inbound friends thing. So to your point, why are you doing that? You are way more likely to start and strike up a conversation with me if I've already talked to you and we already did that badge exchange, because that badge exchange means I wanted to do it. I literally didn't do it with vendors that I didn't care about, right? But if I did, I'm waiting to hear from you. I am sitting here staring at my inbox every day like, I wish so-and-so messaged me, right? Because it's like, well, why else did you do it? So, so this I thought was really cool, which is what's a product that XRF offers that would be great to create a landing page off of to increase overall inbound, right? Yeah. And so it's looking at your SciAps libs analyzer. I don't know if that's said properly.
It is.
And then I don't know, but it's, you would. Is that a top seller? Is that
it's a popular product for sure.
Okay. So then talks about why it made that choice, because it has a lot of versatility. It appeals to high growth markets, has a unique selling point, or comes up with unique selling props.
Yeah. Let's talk about number 4. And we're gonna go a few extra minutes here. I'm sure nobody's watching, but you can watch the recording.
Makes for a great
again. This is based on information that already exists in the world, right? So every time right now, so I'm on the side, thanks to Marcus Sheridan basically giving me permission that there is a Google apocalypse happening right now. Like, SEO is not what it was. Like, we talked about that earlier. The whole infrastructure of digital information, basically the internet, was built for that reality that no longer exists, right? Mm-hmm. It's going away very quickly. But all the information out there, still like 99% of it will tell you how important it is, right? Even though we all just went to inbound and talked about how it's not. Like, we've got social, we've got AI, we've got all these other places. It's difficult to manufacture traffic. So maybe we go to where the people are instead of trying to push them into other places, which is why LinkedIn is popular. So that you're going to get stuff like this where it's like, hey, I'm not a big fan of SEO. You modify it now. You're like, hey, I want you to redo this, like deprioritizing SEO. We've decided as a business, like, to not focus on SEO as a strategy, right? Mm-hmm. And I always know when I'm kind of, targeting status quos, that's how much I like or dislike the answer, right? Mm-hmm. And just like in the content, the thought leadership play, right? I've discovered a lot in the last 6 months about what it means to go online every day, right? Nobody's going to give you that advice. None of these are going to give you that advice because the advice doesn't exist out there, right? But there's no denying the results, that have been created. That doesn't stop you from saying, hey, okay, let's think about this a little differently. Like, actual media companies are creating and delivering content every day. So think about this like a news channel instead, and give me the recipe, That's where it's, again, we're a long ways away from all of the insights available. Like, there's still moments like this, and this is not hallucination at all. This is industry best practices as of September 27th, 2024, according to 95% of the people that you might ask about SEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to give you that, right? That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to, work with it, right? And make it better for you as in your business.
Right. Yeah, because you're going to want to. I mean, we talked about that. The fact that all that really happens is that you go from creator to editor. But you already knew how to create, so you knew what to look for when you were editing your own stuff. So, like, to me, that it just makes it easy, right? That you're looking at what it is that it's putting out for you foundationally and strategy wise, and what it suggests. And then you understand your business the best. You understand your product the best. You understand how to take what it's given you, take the ideation that it is creating for you, and to mold that to make it more specific to your business, to more specific to your brand.
Yeah.
So flexible purchase options that are available on that you can highlight, and then starts going into the actual landing page strat, right? So it gives you headline, subheadline, start the key features that you should speak to, call to actions that you can use, trust signals that you can put out there, right? And then, of course, the lead capture form, and it's giving you a little advice, try to make it really minimalist, and if you can, offer a download to create an additional incentive, right?
Yeah.
And so then I basically highlighted the form aspect and said, can you give me a few examples? If you don't know, when it comes to GPT, you can highlight text and it'll give you this little quote reply. And when you do that, it understands that this is now the context for this question, as opposed to you asking, give me a few examples without this context, would have obviously just entailed this entire thing. And you could say, give me some form examples, but it would be generic lead cap, like it would be generic form examples, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use it all the time, but when I do,
Right.
So here are some form examples that you could use. Get your free guide, and then fields that you could use for that, downloadable resources, some examples, and then what I wanted realistically, I was like, okay, thinking about pitching HubSpot to XRF, right? I'm a strat, I'm a salesperson, whatever, and I'm lining up my pitch, and I'm lining up my kickoff call, right? So I want to pitch to you guys, and I want to pitch you on HubSpot. Well, so first I'm going to start with lead generation needs. We're going to talk about like how, what is your lead generation like now versus what we could do for it. So we can talk about creating those optimized landing pages, talk about lead magnets that we could offer to them, talk to them about, modifying their forms and making them better. And then you have your key talking points specific to those actions, right? So forms and landing pages, custom workflows for helping out with managing forms and lead data, and then integrated analytics so that you can take a look at those and turn that into actionable insight. Showing the value of HubSpot CRM for the sales process. So we could take a look at key pipeline management, deal stages, sales automation, email tracking sequences. It's a lot of stuff that you're probably already going to know, perhaps. But if you're going to pitch them on the entire software suite versus what you would really want to talk to them about, right? And then I want to say, yeah, so I even asked it to like, hey, take a look at these specific tools and the specific aspects of HubSpot that could relate to them wanting to switch and switch over to the platform. So, custom dashboards are a part of it. ROI tracking is something we can do through reporting. Same thing with lead attribution. We handle third-party integrations. And then, of course, emphasizing the fact that it's it's on its way to becoming enterprise level software. So, and then you've got your example discussion. Right. And so we could, is that where it ends? That it gives you a key closing statement. But we could take all of this example discussion and we could quote that and we could say, can you give me a speech that I can reference for this meeting. Include bullet points that I've already remembered content it is referencing. Okay, so now we're going to have like this broken down speech that we're going to use as part of the discussion that we're going to have with this person, right? So, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for taking the time to meet. Really excited. Let's dive into the key ways that HubSpot can help you. First, let's talk about lead gen, right? So it's like the whole conversation is being had here, right? And now if you wanted to, of course, you could change it and say, can you make this a bit more lively and add some jokes to data and HubSpot, how help XRF. I'd love to see how it's going to come up with those jokes. Appreciate you taking out the time. So here's one thing that I'm sure is going to be different. Let's see. I love that it gives you those bullet points. Okay, so it's operations, enhance lead generation, and drive better results, like focus on technical products, all that stuff, right? You come down to the modified version, because let's face it, who doesn't want more leads? Like that is such a natural way that you would express that, right? It even includes, I use this all the time. I couldn't tell you why, but I use this expression of right with the question on it.
You do it because you want them nodding and saying yes as quickly as possible.
Probably.
Sales 101.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, this is, it is like really a way for you to be able to go through and let's say, and try to keep in mind, guys, this is just one file. So if I want to, as a salesperson, I can upload this one file. Then maybe I keep a file all the time that's literally coded for the way I write emails. And then we have another one that's coded for the way that I do sales introductions or something, right? Then I can add all of that together in here. And now I've got an even more powerful model that I can say, hey, apply what I do here to the data from here and give me, X, Y, Z, what I'm looking for, right? And you get this, you end up with this very, very tailored version of what it is that you would have normally taken a lot of time to put together. And the way in which we did all the building and the pulling of the URLs and everything like that, could you do this manually and, give it these? First of all, you couldn't give it the entire list like this. It would choke. It would maybe do 2 or 3 and then it would give up. I know because I used to do that method and it's not so great. I've tried programming it 1,000,000 times. This method, 1,000 times better. So being able to do that, and I'm not going to lie, I don't know if that's what one of Dharmesh's bots does for that company analyzer. Like I could see it doing that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in my opinion, this is it's such a great way for you to be able to prep for a client, to be able to ask it questions. Again, it understands like enough about HubSpot to be able to give you those like rough outlines of what you need in order to talk to your client about stuff. Or if you're working with a client about, let's say, what would be some target areas we should look at when it comes to lead scoring.
Is there a way, it's one of my favorite things about Claude projects is that I could just add like the docs it creates to the project?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there a way to do that here?
Yeah, because it's the same thing. So the custom GPT is the exact same as a Claude project. It's one and the same thing. You're just giving it information, and then the model can basically wrap itself around that information, and you can query against it and use it for additional things. It's the same functionality. Google has it now as well. Everybody just calls it something different, right? That's pretty much it.
So how would I add this output to the custom GPT?
Oh, this output specifically? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you wanted to add this output, all you would do is you would copy what you've got, and you go back to you could go back to this model to JSON format, but you could take this, you could put it in a text doc, right? I do have another Python script that does that. It takes TXT files and translates them into JSON files. You can even probably give it I've done that before. If it's structured enough, what I would do is, this is exactly what I would do. Copy, go and create a Word file. Actually, I have a scratch pad that I use. I use this thing for everything. I have so much stuff written in here. It's nuts. All of the GPT stuff that I do, I have scratch pads for. Okay. Paste it in here, and you can see it's already given it UTF formatting, right? Just from having pasted it into here. So with that UTF formatting, you can reselect this text, go back into GPT, and because it has the formatting on it, you can say, can you take this text and create let's do it. Grab it from here.
That's where there's always, so it's fun to use the different tools right now. And understand that they're definitely thinking of different use cases that they're targeting with the app experience. And that's where this part that you're doing now, there is a button at the end of the doc on Claude that just says add to project.
Yeah.
And it's very cool.
Okay. I did not know about that.
Yeah. It's and that's where it only works when it does the side-by-side doc creation or visual creation.
Okay. Right? Got it. Okay.
So that makes sense. Output. So I'm curious when you do have outputs, because sometimes GPT will spit out a table or something.
Actually, not instructions.
But yeah, that's been super valuable. And you start to just create this space where it's just if you have a business strategist on the team and they're creating documentation and the hassle of, okay, you created that. Now we have to make it, we have to add it to our source of truth, wherever that is. And then we have to train everybody on it. And yeah, those days are gone.
Very much so.
We're past them. So.
Okay, so now you take your content, and based on the UTF-8 hierarchy, it's able to then break that down into a JSON hierarchy. And after this is done, you can copy the code, create a file, save it, .json, and then upload that to your GPT. So it is a little bit more convoluted. It takes you a whole minute as opposed to clicking a button. So it's real convoluted.
I don't want it.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, that's one that we have to talk about at some point on one of these shows is the already you people already with the selfishness out there. It is quite amazing how selfish people have become already with this tech. I kind of love it because that means that people want it really badly. But at the same time, it is weird for people I was trying to demo something for someone, and because I was using O1 Preview, it was doing the thinking, and they didn't really catch on, and they didn't understand the whole reasoning aspect. So they literally walked away for a second to go talk to somebody else and then came back to go see what the result was. And it's wow, it was 2 seconds. It wasn't even that long. You see, thinking for 12 seconds, you couldn't handle 12 seconds of waiting. Oh man.
Yeah. So some pluses and minuses for sure.
Hands down.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, this has been great. I love doing this with you every week. I know it's valuable for some people. We're getting a lot of good feedback, and we'll keep it up, man. So again, it's just about diving into these tools. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Specific examples, right? Happy. Sometimes you just need to see somebody do it one time.
Yep.
I remember when George was describing to me how you prep data, for Hub Harry, or Hub Helper Harry, and it's you just did it in a few minutes. Now it's like, okay, not rocket science anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need a PhD to do that. I'm probably still not going to do it. That's if you do it. But
no, but like
I'll use the GPT when it's done.
I mean, for those of you who really want to know, when Harry first started, it was copy paste. It was going to every page, select all, copy and paste into a doc file. And then I was editing the doc file to get rid of the redundancies, turning the doc file into a TXT to then turn into JSON. Like, it was a process. And still the amount of files that are in Harry are more than I would like. So, I'm working on compression constantly. I'm working on API updates constantly. I'm trying to update his knowledge base so he has all the new knowledge base features, which is ridiculous to try to keep up with. There's 5 new knowledge base articles every week. So, I also, guys, I get a lot of stuff from people about, hey, I asked it this and it doesn't know it yet. And the thing you're asking it about is 2 weeks old. Really sorry. It's not my full-time job. If it was, I'd be on it every single day. I try. Okay. I try my damnedest. It's usually every week or every 2 weeks that he gets a knowledge update, which is much faster than GPT, who is still on like 2023 data or something.
Yeah. So, we appreciate the work that you do, man.
I love it.
And until next week, look for those opportunities and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.